You are listening to The Growth Signal. My name is Alyssa Nolte,
And I'm Cameron Magee.
and we're going to get right into it. Cameron, what is your hot take?
Well, my hot take is that millions of dollars in sales and marketing and outbounding efforts don't hold a candle to just one single referral.
Okay, this is such a good and important topic, and it's so funny that you say this because maybe like a month or two ago, I had someone who had the opposite hot take of everyone's building their business on referrals, and now we can't rely on that. And so I can't wait to have this conversation with you because 100% of my business has been built on a form of referrals. So tell us more about what you mean by that.
Well, I can tell the whole story, but just all I would say as a beginning is it's just my life experiences. It's just really what I've witnessed the last probably 3 or 4 years. We've been in business for 15 years. But it's a crazy hot take. But when you ask hot take, like that's the tip of my tongue because it's what I've seen and experienced here recently.
Tell me more about like that referral process because that is one thing that I feel like people have a hard time and maybe it's the Midwest in me, but sometimes I feel weird asking for the referral. So how do you do that intentionally so that you're not just hoping that somebody remembers they had a good experience with you?
Well, I'm from Arkansas, and so I can relate. And I'm not on your show because I have it all figured out. I don't have a great system for it. What I'm mostly saying is, our first 10 years in business, we were pretty much referral driven. I did a pretty poor job of just it accidentally happening, but it fueled our business and fueled our growth. Over the last 3 or 4 years, I added it up. We've literally spent millions, not just 1 million, but multiple seven figures in sales and marketing in our business. And then about 8 months ago, a friend, kind of in parallel with that, like we're doing all this work, all this spend, we're tracking how it's doing in terms of ROI, of course, and what's working and not. And then a friend that I've known for years and just called and said, "Hey, I've got this perfect project for you, and I want to introduce you." And ironically, that account is 8 months old, and we have done more with that account that has blossomed. We've kind of done like a land and expand. And that one thing, I say with the utmost humility, it's embarrassing. I'm so grateful. It's such a blessing. But that one account has surpassed the amount of ROI we've gotten from 3 or 4 years and multiple millions of dollars. And so that's my hot take coming on the show. I can't wait to listen to that episode, honestly.
Yeah, I'll have to send you the link after because it's very interesting to think about all the time, effort, and money that goes into websites. I've had, rebuild my website on my to-do list for months, like, at
Yeah.
this point, and it just takes time, like, it's time and effort, and, as a startup, as a company that's we're all bootstrapping here, we aren't Walmart, we aren't these huge companies that have, basically unlimited resources. We have to make really smart decisions
That's right.
about the way that we approach our marketing and the way that we approach things, because one bad spend could be a missed payroll for a
Yes.
lot of our businesses. One of the things that I have found, and maybe it's just the nature of the businesses that I work with, but typically I work with really large organizations. And so we had what we used to call turnover marketing,
Hmm.
where basically we'd work with somebody at a company. We do research consulting. We'd work with somebody at a company. They would have a great experience with us. We would work really hard to build a very personal relationship with everyone we were working with, not just the decision maker who decided to hire us, but the entire team up and down the stack. And
Yeah.
we always went out of our way to make sure that everybody felt heard and a part of it and listened to, and very personal relationships, because we discovered that person gets hired at some other new company. They move on. We tend to go with them. We do the
Yep.
same thing there. Almost all of my clients have come from that kind of like turnover marketing approach
Yes.
where I'm being a good human, I'm building authentic relationships, and they just so happen to bring me along, and then I root in wherever they go, and as they continue to move on, I continue to move on too, while holding on to where they were before.
Well, it sounds natural. I mean, that's what bumblebees do. I think that's butterflies. I think nature is doing this everywhere. I said land and expand, you said turnover. It's cross pollination, no matter which insect we're talking about. I think it's brilliant.
So tell me more about, you said you had a friend who called you up. One of the things, and I think it was maybe my third ever podcast guest, and I've done over 200 episodes now, and it still sticks with me. That's how you know it's a good episode. He said, "You need to make sure that people know you for what you want to be known for and are willing to speak up when you're not in the room."
Yeah.
So it sounds to me like you kind of built a relationship with a friend who knew what you were, the best in the world at and was willing to open that door on your behalf. Tell me more about how you got that message down.
Yeah, I can't wait to listen to that episode too. That's gonna be a good one. I'll go find that one too. I yeah, you absolutely want your positioning to be as simple and clear as possible. That when someone says Sub's freaky fast, you're like Jimmy John's. That's different than Subway. You want your positioning to be super clear. I agree. I say friend because I'm a big believer. You never burn a bridge. You can't control someone else burning the bridge on their side for you, but I don't burn bridges. I don't want to ever burn a bridge. And it's amazing. We're honored now. We get to do events for the White House. Our company, we do AV, we do event production. We're the nerds in the back of the room at these big national conferences with the stage and lights and sound and stuff. And years ago, we did a nice job for a person who then got promoted and then promoted again and promoted again. And now they're in charge of production for the White House. And so now we get to
Right.
do events for the president. We've done that for multiple administrations now, not just the current administration, but the previous. That's a great example of land and expand and cross pollinate. This friend that I'm talking about with this referral, in our industry, event production, even if you're not familiar with it, because it's kind of niche, I think event production is a lot like building construction. You're hiring like a contractor.
Yep.
They have subcontractors who make things happen. And so over the last, I don't know, 5 to 7 years, I've hired so many subcontractors. And I have so much respect for these subcontractors. They're not lesser than us. They're just specialists and experts in the lane, just like a drywall or a painter or whatever construction metaphor we want to do. Well, this subcontractor who we've had multiple events with 5, 7 years, they've seen us inside and out. When he called me and said, "Hey, I've got this opportunity," this is not someone that I'd wined and dined. I've not done smoke and mirrors and shown him a bunch of pretty renderings and tried to do the sales trick on him. He has seen us at our best and worst. He's been with us at midnight when we're still troubleshooting something. And he said, "You are perfect. This is your bullseye. This is exactly what you do." And he can't do it. And so there's times we can only be on 5 events on the same day. We do 150 events a year. There's times when I get a sixth lead on a date, and it's just like this date is just on fire for some reason. I have to refer that to friends. They same thing. They get double booked, triple booked. They refer it to me. You have to keep these ecosystems flowing where you've got bidirectional, symbiotic referral movement happening. But yeah, he called and he said, "You're perfect for this." And we did one project, but one turned into three, and three's turned into nine, and now it's a beautiful account. But it all came from that. And I don't know how to thank him. I've tried. I've been like, "What can I?" And he's like, "You don't need to thank me. You thanked me by being excellent for this client. Like you've made me look good that I got you in there, and you're doing a
Yep.
great job." And it's crazy to think of how much money we've spent on trying to do all the things that everybody says, "Oh, Google AdWords or do this content more," all of these levers we've pulled, and then just being ourselves and being true to ourselves and him inserting us into the room, which I've done the same for him. And we would do the same for each other 100 times over. It's who I am. It's who he is. But it's just crazy coming on the show today when you said hot take. That's my hot take.
There's so much in there, and I'm writing down notes because I wanna make sure I come back to it, but, when you start a company and you've started your own company, so you kinda know as well. One of the first things that you do, because all the leadership business building books tell you that you have to, is kinda like write down your corporate core values, right? And so I did that same thing, and everything you're describing is the exact type of people that I wanna work with to a T. So, like, one of my core values is be easy to work with,
Good.
right? And that sounds to me like exactly the reason that you got that opportunity is because they've seen you at your best and they've seen you at your worst, and they've seen that you're up at midnight trying to make it happen. Like, a lot of times, people don't come to me and hire me because they have something easy that can just be like a checkbox thing. I only get the hard stuff, and I feel like once in a while, I really would like something easy, but the reason that I get hired is because we do the hard things, and that's why we get brought to the table. But my most important core value that I tell everybody is, like, my number one thing. I'm a huge believer in the idea of, like, pay it forward, give first, give often, and give without any expectation of anything in return. And that goes to your, like, refer point, right? And to your friend bringing you in. He brought you in not because he thought he would get a kickback or a referral or any kind of thing like that. He just said, "I have a client. I wanna help them. I wanna do what it takes, and this is a guy who I know I can trust. I've seen him at his best, I've seen him at his worst, and I know that if I bring him into this conversation, 1, he'll deliver a great experience for my client, which is important to me, and 2, you know, the ocean is blue enough and big enough for all of us, so maybe we can all just have a little piece of it and be content with our piece.
It's been eye-opening, Alyssa, and it's made me rethink a lot of our relationships that we have. Again, vendor is such a weird word. I don't like saying partner. Partner is like the trendy thing to say, but we're not literal business partners. So I don't typically say
Right.
partner, but we have vendors and we have folks we get wholesale gear from. If we just need a pile of gear on a date, just wholesale. But it has made me really eye open about, I want almost all of the spend that we're having to be a two-way street with someone that could refer back. It's fascinating to think about. Like if we are buying, equipment from a big box operation, that I'm mailing them a check, they are never going to mail me a check ever. But if I can source anything from anyone that may be, and it's so fascinating, it's 2026. This is just how things were 100 years ago. You're the local tire shop. You go down to the hardware store and you get parts. And then guess what? When that hardware store needs tires, they come get it from you. I mean, it's very normal 100 years ago. This is what you do. It's called community.
Yeah.
But I think we've gotten so cold or dry with just ordering things from Amazon.com or going and getting our groceries at Walmart or whatever, which is nothing wrong with either one of those. I appreciate both those enterprises. But it is different but it's not about scratching my back. It's not really about that I'm expecting it to. It's just making me realize it's amazing. I've paid him hundreds of thousands of dollars over the years. He's done amazing work. I have no regrets. He has no regrets. And then here, this just happens. He didn't set out for that to happen, but here we are. It's beautiful.
And I think too, to your point, I worry that we have gotten very transactional at the little guy level.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, these types of conversations and relationships are happening at the highest echelons. Like, how often do you hear about? I had a client once actually who he is in charge of a very important, very large organization. He had a friend who owned a competing service to my service. We lost that client for a small, short portion of time because his friend came in and said, "Hey, I bet my team could do it better." And that friend came in and took our business, even though we had been there and like been really entrenched for many, many years. But the CEO had a friend. That
Yeah.
friend said, "Hey, let me come in." Now we
Yeah.
did get that business back because he could not do better than us. But at the end of the day, that is really how business gets done. And I think we do ourselves as a disservice as the quote unquote little guys by not thinking in terms of that like open and abundant mindset because and I will say when I work with smaller clients, they are so much harder to work with sometimes
Oh, yeah.
because they pinch every penny.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas my big clients are like, "Crap, I have to spend $175,000 this week. Can I send you a check?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, cool." But it's just different for them. And so I think we have to step out of this transactional, like, we're going to fail any day mindset and look around and say, there is enough for me to bring in Cameron because, yeah, sure, could I probably figure out some small scale AV thing or hire some college kid to do it for me on the cheap? Probably. Or could I bring in Cameron, who's a real professional, and have a great event? And maybe I have no part in it whatsoever, but at least I opened a door for someone else, and maybe that comes back to me.
Yeah, like a side branch off this conversation years ago when you're saying, you love, that's kind of who you are and your character. I had lunch with a friend and he said, "You should read this book called The Go-Giver." Have you read that one, Alyssa?
No, but it's
It's
going
so
on my
good.
list just by
Go-Giver.
title alone.
Well,
Go Giver.
the last thing all of us need is another book recommendation. It's like, who is this guy giving us another dang book to read? But Go-Giver. And so I read it and it was really eye-opening and it made me realize we we're we're super blessed to be where we are and we have had people give us work over the years. And any good ecosystem, there's a top of the funnel, but there's also an output release valve. And it made me realize I don't feel like I'm referring enough stuff. And the book was really opening to say that's supposed to be a function of a healthy organism, any system. You can't just keep putting water in the pool. Like there's got to be a release valve. And so it was a couple years ago. I was like, well, what do I have to give? We're a small, medium business. I mean, but I realized we get a lot of leads that are not good fit. And early on, I said yes to everything. It was almost like I was
As
starving and
we
I was
all do. As
eat
we
out of
all
the
do.
dumpster.
Yeah.
But as we've gotten more precise about what we do, like most of our events are these, $100,000 in AV or so, like a six-figure project. It's like a 1,000-person general session that's multiple days. It's got breakouts. Like that's what we do. Well, we still get people call all the time. We don't get like wedding inquiries, but we get like tiny inquiries that are just like, that's not us. Or as I said, we get, triple booked, 5X booked, 6 booked. This is our busiest 2 weeks of the year right now. And so we had to refer and leak out so much stuff. In the past, we would just said, "Oh, sorry, we're booked. Thanks. Good luck."
Right.
Now we've made a list of like, who would we want to give this business to? And we warmly refer it to like 6 different folks. Those folks can't give us anything. They're they're so small. It's never going to be a two-way street. We just give it to them. It's not a karma thing. I'm not really talking about like spirituality in that. I'm just saying we flow it through to them, and it makes me realize no matter how big or small you are, we can all be kind of flowing through and giving like that. And that book changed my perspective on that because I've always considered myself the little guy. What could I possibly share? But somebody reaches out and needs a freelancer. If they need a videographer to come do a one-man band thing, we know exactly who to call. And those guys would lay on a train track for me right now. They're just like, I've gotten more business from Cameron referring me than my own marketing. And so they would be an interesting guest if I was like, here's my argument, here's my hot take, and here's 6 guys who I've been sending stuff to. They'd probably say the same thing, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I think too, like, you and I have been at this for about 15 years, right? So we were the little guy begging for table scraps 15
Yeah.
years ago. I mean, I guess I shouldn't assume. I mean, like, I remember begging people to just give me any ounce of attention and trying
Yeah.
all of these things and going to those networking events and trying to prove that I had something worth saying and like something worth listening to. And I haven't told this story on the show for a long time, so we'll see if there's any OGs listening. But my first real client came because a friend of mine came into my office and said, "Hey, I have a friend over at Salesforce. He is looking for what you guys do. He doesn't have any budget though, so he kind of needs to go with someone cheap. So he can't go with like the big guy he would normally hire because he doesn't have any budget. So I thought maybe you would do it for cheap." And I was like, okay, cool. And so he gave me this guy's phone number over at Salesforce, huge company. And I never made the phone call because I'm sitting here thinking like, what is Salesforce going to want with a little guy like me? I'm too
Uh,
little to possibly do anything. And
uh,
so then he comes back to my office about a week later and says, "Hey, you haven't called my friend yet." And I said,
uh,
"No, because like, what is he really going to want? We are a tiny little company in Iowa. What is he going to want with us?"
uh.
And he picks up my phone and he dials the number and hits call and hands it to me and he says, "You're talking to him right now."
What a friend.
And then that turned into a 15-year relationship. I still have a relationship with them today. I have done more business with Salesforce than any of our other accounts. And that is people leave Salesforce, they go to Microsoft, they
That's
go
right.
to wherever they go, and then we end up in all these other incredible places. But because I had this I'm too little mentality, I
Well,
would have never made that phone call myself. And I think it's the same thing we have with these referrals. There's probably really talented people out there that we could refer to that are too afraid to ask
well,
for that opportunity.
well. Yeah, that's super humbling. I'm so thankful for your friend that dialed it for you. That's so bold. I love that courage. Yeah, our early years, we were just a kind of a local regional AV crew, and I had a couple of clients say, "Hey, we just got quotes. We're going to be in these big markets, and the last time we were in these big markets, we paid way more than we pay you, and we got way worse service than with
Yep.
you, and we're not looking forward." I was just with them on a show, and they're like, "This is such a breath of fresh air when with you guys. You do a great job. It's so reasonable. Like this is awesome." And so, thankfully, I'm so dumb, but one of them said, "Would you quote this show in the other market?" I was like, "Oh, that's my job. I'm supposed to say, well, let me quote it." They're like, "Would you quote it?" And I was like, "Sure." And we quoted it, and they took us to Washington D.C. the next month, and we got back, and then one of them told their friend, "You're not going to believe this." Took these guys to Washington D.C. It was a slam dunk. So then they took us to San Francisco the month after that, and we got back, and I was so foolish. I thought we were pretty hot stuff. I was like, "Oh, they must have really needed us." And the second client said, "No, dummy, like, there's 20 production companies in San Francisco I could have called. I got a quote from you guys saved me 10 grand." And it was so humbling. I was like, "Oh gosh," like, I I thought we were hot stuff. We saved you 10 grand, but I needed them, I guess, to pull me with them for me
Yeah.
to realize, "Oh, we should be quoting stuff all over the country." And that's really how we became national was the testing a client, 2 clients saying, "Let's try this." And now we bid on stuff all over the country and win. And we've got our Arkansas prices and we bring Arkansas service at an Arkansas price, and that
Yeah.
does pretty well in Chicago. And so we go all over the place. We go to Washington D.C. today. Actually, it's an ironic city connection, but we're going back to that. city. We just got back from Austin. We were in Orlando before that, Vegas the week before that. We go all over the country, but it started as just being a really good small Arkansas shop. And turns out that's what a lot of people want. And it kind of makes sense. There's a lot of boutique things that have kind of gone that way, but I was short sighted in my vision to realize we need the work because we're from Arkansas. We appreciate that job. So we're going to give 110%. And that means something. So similar stories.
I think too, to come back to your original hot take about, the referral, you can spend all this time and money and effort on marketing, but the referrals are really what drives the business. I think it comes back to something that we've kind of been dancing around this entire conversation, but is a fundamental thing that everybody can do. Deliver great experiences for your customers, be worthy of the referral.
Yeah,
Because there's a lot of businesses these days where I'm doing business with them. I'm giving them my money and my time, which is arguably more valuable than my cash, and I'm just getting really disappointing service.
yep,
And it's like, why are we letting these companies do this?
yep,
It used to be that you focus on delivering great service. And unfortunately, I do think delivering great service is a differentiator these days. And
sadly.
actually caring about your clients and their outcomes and their experiences is a differentiator, which means that you earn the right to get their referral.
That's right. Yeah, in the early days, when I did like AV when I was a kid, when I was 13, would sell $15 DVDs to parents, at the Pee Wee football game. I appreciated the $15. And so I was like, I've got to give them $20 worth of value for this. Like I just have
Yes.
to. And it's 2026. And so like most companies have done mergers and acquisitions and have kind of become big or corporations or the founders no longer there or whatever. And really just at the end of the day, it's humans hiring humans. And so when you take some pride in your work, we're event production, we are AV, but we kind of exist in the hospitality industry, which has forgotten it's the hospitality industry. If you've checked into a hotel lately, some of these banquet staff and stuff, it's incredible. And so we're a breath of fresh air to folks just by taking pride in our work, showing up on time, tucking our shirt in, responding to an email in a reasonable amount of time.
Yep.
It's amazing and it's sad that that's a differentiator, but it is. So let's act like it. I was on a show last week we did with another Fortune 500 company. And I was leaving. I just dropped by the show for like 36 hours. We were going to be there all week. I wanted to come in. It was only our second show with them. And so I wanted to see them and thank them and everything. And I was leaving and our client's boss grabbed me. She said, "Hey, are you the owner?" And I was like, "Yeah." She said, "Let me get your card." She said, I'm gonna write you guys a letter of recommendation."
That's
And
awesome.
I said, "This is very generous of you. And yes, I'm the owner." I shook her hands like, "I haven't even talked to you. I'm so sorry. I've been taking care of him." And she said, "That's what I'm talking about." She said, like unprompted, she's like, "Your company is so service oriented. I'm gonna write you a letter of recommendation." And I was like, "That's so great. I've never even thought to ask for those. I'm so dumb." And the next day I go back to my office and we got this nice big RFP. One of the first requirements is a letter of recommendation from a recent current client. I was like, praise God, look at this, is a miracle. She sends it to me. She sends me the letter. I turn it in. We don't know about the RFP yet. We found out in 2 weeks. But I'm just so blessed and just blown away at just the generosity of like, it's sad to me that stands out, but it truly does. Most
Yeah.
AV crews are pretty grumpy. Knowing a small shop that does a great job and shows up on time, and it's valuable to folks. And so, in kind of a silly, humble way, that's just my expectations on life and business that we're going to do that. And apparently, that's the top 90 percentile, sadly. And just having a small shop where the owner does come by and talk, like that's not normal compared to the Encores and in-house AV kind of conglomerates of the world. So, yeah, I'm super proud of it, but it's also sad too. Listen, but
I
just its
know.
fundamentals. I think we get so caught up in the Google AdWords and all these whiz bang things. And it's like, hold on, let's just go back to basics, the fundamentals here. Are we asking for referrals, or do we have an engine, which I don't have set up? We've got to systematize this now to say, do you have three other shows and do you have three friends? Because the 5 minutes we spend on that, which is valuable, is probably worth more than the millions of dollars in sales and marketing outbounding.
Well, and as I always tell people, like when I do these shows, I have my 3 standard questions that I ask, right? My hot take and then, my 2 closing questions. But it occurs to me as I'm sitting here talking to you, like the question about who you know that I always ask, that's a referral question in a way. Like
Mm,
I am asking you to say someone that
yep.
and refer us all to someone to learn. So on that note, considering all the people that you know or aspire to know, who are you referring us to? Who else should we be paying attention to?
I'll give you two. I know you only asked for one. A crazy one, maybe an unattainable one. I don't know. One of my favorite authors from the last 5 years, his name's Dan Sullivan. He wrote a book called Who Not How. He wrote a book, 10X is Easier Than 2X. He wrote a book, The Gap in the Gain, that has changed my life. And I go to a quarterly workshop with him. I've been in it for 4 years. I fly to Chicago
Is that
every 90
Strategic
days.
Coach? Is that
Yes,
what you're going to?
strategic
Yes.
coach.
I love the
And
little
so
comic books they give out.
it's amazing. I just got back from my workshop on Friday. I'm in. I drink the Kool-Aid. I'm a big fan of it. It has changed my life. So if we're kind of reaching high, Dan Sullivan. For reaching low, I think there's a person on my staff. Her name's Caitlin. I think she's freaking brilliant. I'm on more and more podcasts now, and I've realized I've done 3 or 4 episodes this past like 5 or 6 days. And I was just telling my assistant, we were talking, and she said, "How the episodes been going?" I said, "It's weird. I've been quoting Caitlin on these shows. Like they'll be like, either I'll say some quote and like, oh, that's really good. I'm gonna write that down." It's like, that's just something Caitlin said in the office 4 years ago. So just as like a low key, low tech, I wish Caitlin was on more of these shows, because I think some of my best wisdom that I've found rooted in, recent episode you had was talking about leadership. Don't do as I say, do as I do. Caitlin does as she does, and I follow her lead. So yeah, that's who I'd recommend is Dan Sullivan. Her name's Caitlin Hutchison.
And if someone is loving this conversation, they want to get more of you, they want to have a deeper conversation, or they just want to follow you online, where can they find you?
LinkedIn all day. I love these shows. I love when people connect or follow me on LinkedIn, because that makes it a two-way street. The tough thing about the podcast, because I'm used to shows, I can't see the audience. I don't know who's listening to this, and it drives me crazy. So LinkedIn, at least you can follow or connect. I can be like, oh, cool. Who are you? And let's be friends. You can go to our website, avod3.com, if you need an AV team to do your national conference AV. That's not really why I'm here. So yeah, just add me on LinkedIn.
And if you are looking for me, you can find me also on LinkedIn, search Alyssa Nolte. And if you find the notorious plant killer, you know you have found the right Alyssa Nolte. I also write on Substack under the publication Alyssa Likes to Talk. Cameron, thank you so much for coming on the show. I loved this breath of fresh air on the idea that, hey, we don't have to have gimmicks, we don't have to have, the fancy things, we don't have to overthink it. At the end of the day, we are people buying from people, and relationships at our core is going to be the thing that grows our business. And I love that hot take. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. There are millions of podcasts out there, and something like 70,000 new episodes are released every single day. It's not lost on me how lucky I am to have such an incredible community who show up and support this show. To be a guest or nominate someone who should join me on the pod, head to alyssanolte.com. And if you're looking for ad-free episodes, you can join me on Substack. I post all new episodes of my podcasts and share appearances on other people's shows, plus bonus content and updates on what I'm working on. Search Alyssa Likes to Talk or tap the link in the show notes.